Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Odys Podcast brought to you by Odys Global. I'm your host, Vladimir Gillian. The modern business landscape is incredibly vast, and one thing no business can do without is a functional and relevant website, which in turn requires a solid platform, a domain to build it out on. The following is a conversation with Alex Drew, the CEO and co-founder of Odys Global. Odys Global is the leading marketplace for premium H domains. Alex has been working his way through the industry for almost 20 years, exploring the market, analyzing patterns, developing a platform, and building a team. This is the first episode of Odys Global, and we hope to bring you lots of valuable information, tons of insight, and multiple ideas for starting a business, whether you're an SEO expert, digital marketer, aspiring entrepreneur, or simply looking for a way to start even a small business. Here's our conversation with Alex Drew.
No one is watching.
Yet.
Yeah.
All right.
The only one watching is Vlaiko.
All right. Well, it's great to finally have this conversation with you, Alex.
Yeah, it just shows again, the everything you can, think about, you can achieve. Everything you can imagine, you can achieve. So we can imagine this, I believe, like a month ago.
Maybe more.
And we got it done.
Yeah.
So the initiative was yours. So thank you for the initiative.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I think it's kind of cliche these days that, all brands and companies end up, so they figure out at some point that we need a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, even though we need a podcast, I think we should make it different. And starting with the content, first of all, the people that end up being here, the people that we end up inviting, and overall the quality of the podcast should be different. So regardless if brands need a podcast or not, we should make it awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So the word has it, as I've heard from your previous interviews from previous years, that you've been dealing with domains for about 20 years.
Yeah.
That means you started pretty young.
If you've been, doing business online or any kind of online activity, it's kind of... So when I first started, you could register a domain for at least, $50 to $100, which shows basically how far the industry has gone. Because back in those days, you had those racketeers, registrars that would charge you like 10x fold, for a domain name. And that was ridiculous. So those were the times, I believe, the end of 90s, the beginning of, 2000. Then that was the time when I first registered, my first domain names. I got accustomed to what a registrar is, how to configure the name servers, how to get a website. So yeah, it's been quite a ride.
What exactly brought you to this idea, to dealing with domains exactly? I mean, not just building websites, not just selling whatever online, but like dealing with domains.
Well, really, the internet is a mix of, IP addresses and content, and you cannot serve content on IP addresses because very few people have a trained enough brain to remember those numbers. So you need basically a URL. You need a domain name that's brandable, that's easy to remember, that passes the radio test when I spell it. So when I spell vlad.com or vlad.com, anyone will remember it. Whereas if I spell like 3-4 words .io domain, you might not remember it. So, in the end, it was my attempt to bring some content online. So, the internet being the thing back in the days, you wanted to, somehow, manifest yourself. So I believe the first type of content was something related to, music, art, whatever was the passion back then. I thought it would be nice to bring it, online. And then just, on a free host, which was very popular back in the days, you could get like free hosts for like 15 megabytes, free hosts, subdomains, but those weren't, attractive enough, to just brag about them. So owning a domain meant a lot back in the days. And it seems like it still means a lot today.
Was the community hard to get into? Like when you start doing something, right, you want to share the ideas with others and like maybe inspire from their ideas. So community builds around it. So
there were no communities back then.
okay.
Like I was a lone wolf, and I believe there were plenty of lone wolves out there trying, to figure out the industry, to hand register great domain names, to buy and sell them back in the days. But due to the lack of like social networks and, very few means of communicating online other than, some kind of, chats like on websites and, some software that allowed you to connect to servers. Besides that, there was no means. So it was no community.
Mm-hmm.
Later, closer to, when Facebook launched and then you had Twitter, it was easier to get in touch and to actually, get to know people. But beyond that, and in events, obviously, if you were into traveling and going to events, but other than that, there was no means of getting to know other people, online. Like anything you could do basically revolved around, getting in touch with website owners or domain owners and buying their domains or, selling your domains.
Okay, so you were basically a pioneer among the pioneers.
I wouldn't call myself a pioneer because, being a lone wolf, you had no idea how many other lone wolves are there. I assume there were, tens of thousands who figure out, this is like the future and, domains are a non-fungible, asset. If you have Vlad.com, for example, no one else has it. So in time, it will grow in value as there are more Vlads being born and everyone wants to launch, or maybe someone wants to launch like a brand that's named after themselves. Mm-hmm. So the domains are a scarce business, just like land.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll get some other, like blockchain domains, for example, which are in vogue right now. But generally speaking, this has, made it a market for domain names.
Mm-hmm.
And it's digital real estate at the end of the day.
This means that even today, it's somewhat closed community. You guys, the domain experts, like know each other more or less, like the most prominent names, let's say. And how do you cope with the competition? Because I understand that, like all of you are competitors, because you all want to get the most out of what you're doing. So how do you cope with them? Do you befriend them, or do you like try to rival them?
I believe any kind of competition is harmful, and trying to rival someone does no good. It drains your energy, it drains your resources, it drains your mindset for any type of good ideas that might pop up in your mind while doing something constructive and actually positive and productive. And that's why I believe there is like a piece of pie for everyone. Mm-hmm. I believe anyone can succeed. As a matter of fact, there is this saying, I believe James Dooley, he's one of our, early supporters from UK. He often says, your network is your net worth. Mm-hmm. So not the money, your bank account, not your yearly turnover, but the actual network. And as a matter of fact, with Odys, we had this new angle towards, domains and due diligence. So it was very important to have early supporters. And if you'd rival everyone, even like those that would still sell domains, there is a little bit of competitiveness in between us, but at the end of the day, it's very good to get to know them and to be able to share, stuff. It might get a little tricky when, they start, copying things that you do, lacking initiative to, develop and build something new on their own. But that is pretty common in any type of business, just good things get, copied. And replicated by, those who pop up in the market a little bit later.
Okay, yeah. Speaking of the things that get copied, that replicated, that means that the company has to stand out from the crowd. What does make Odys stand out from the crowd? What makes it different from the rest?
Well, there are plenty of things. I believe, the most important things are the quick wins. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, what we did different, especially in the age domain industry, and it's important to understand that age domains are no different than any other domains. The foundation is basically the due diligence. Mm-hmm. So we kind of united, the two worlds of traditional domain names where only names and top-level domain extensions matter, with the world of, checking the historical records of the domain names in an attempt to figure out what was previously on the domain.
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, figure out the presence of any type of abuse, bad PR, harmful backlinks that will eventually, be, detrimental to your whatever website you wanted to build it, either a real brand or a content website, doesn't really matter. So what we did different is, first of all, we got very strict in regards to this approach. This basically lays at the foundation of our due diligence process. And second of all, in an industry where you had, even top domain investors, they would act, on their own. They would trade the domains on their own. Rarely they would build a real company around them. So we have a few exceptions, like GoDaddy, for example, and most recently Dan.com, who got acquired by GoDaddy. So they wanted to actually build a product and out of the domain selling process, add value to the process, not just trade domains like speculate domains. So in the SEO / domaining industry, those who realize, there is much more to building a website on an age domain, which has historical records, than a new one. People taking, part in this marketplace and in this industry, they were buying domains from spreadsheets. They were buying domains, by communicating via Skype. So it was a very kind of undergroundish way of trading. Whereas we thought this can't possibly scale, and not because our aim is to make a lot of money, but because, it just doesn't feel right. So we thought, why not build a marketplace and combine, selling a digital asset, which is a domain, with a full-fledged e-commerce solution. So that you can log in your dashboard, it's 3 a.m. in the morning, maybe you feel, more creative, picking up names at this hour. And just having a great experience overall. And not just, and having someone to help if you're new, to the industry. So that's how Odys was born, the entire concept of the marketplace. And that's what we did it different. And when that happened, everyone realized, well, it makes sense. We should all build marketplaces and not just, serve, Excel spreadsheets with domain names for our clients to pick. So, everyone started investing in creating better products. So in a way that's good for the industry.
Yeah. So it's the strict approach, transparency, visually appealing interface, right? And at the end of the day, each domain that Odys sells is a high quality product in itself.
Yeah,
you make sure that everything is in place, that history is clean, that the links are functional, that they can be tuned, set up properly, and bring tons of traffic and all that kind of things. This means that each of the domains currently available in the Odys inventory are a business platform, each of them.
Yeah.
Is this where the domains that mean business stems from?
I think we haven't fully figured out what domains mean business means. And not because we can't explain it, but because it's too complex. I mean, it's too big. It's beyond, as we grow as a company, and that was one of the latest goals. We didn't decide to build this company and to build Odys and to build a marketplace just to sell some domains and make money. We really wanted to build a great product and a great company. So that is one of the top 3 visions. Build a great company, and all the domains in our inventory have to pass through this due diligence to make great products. And when the due diligence is strict, you build a brand on that. So your members, your customers. And when I say members, that's because our marketplace is invite only, or you have to request access to get in. And we really don't want to have 100,000 lurkers just, looking around. We'd rather have, 100, committed entrepreneurs who know what they're doing, who understand, the value of a good brandable domain name that also has historical records that are of value and can be treated as assets. So it's very important to actually be transparent and strict in regards to the due diligence process, because this allows, in time, this just makes your customers more confident. It's like when going to a coffee shop and knowing the coffee is good, you don't have to ask if it's good every single time. You just
buy it.
You just buy it. And this is what we're trying to achieve. And beyond that, we figure out that simply selling domain names or brokering domain names or any other type of domain trading activity isn't enough, because most of the time your customers, regardless of if they're beginners or advanced, or regardless of their ability to buy, and the price range, they still have lots of questions, and they need their ideas validated. At some point in time, even seasoned entrepreneurs who had multiple businesses, multiple exits, they may have maybe lying on a lot of capital, they still need their new idea validated. So that's why we're doing strategy calls. That's why we're sort of like obsessed with doing everything we can to help them validate and their idea and just make a great decision. And sometimes we have to say no when they ask about a particular domain to fit a certain niche market or industry. We have to say no, just because that's our honest opinion. And if we have an alternative that we believe is more suitable, we'd recommend that. And we won't recommend that.
So you don't just sell a thing and say bye-bye. You always keep in touch with your members.
Yeah. So it's very important to understand that. And we've been preaching that lately. We've been trying to, our relationship with whoever buys a domain doesn't end when the sale is over. That's very important. And that's a part of domains that mean business, because our attitude reflects, this business confidence, feeling, and also the fact that each domain can be a full-fledged business. Each domain can be a full-fledged, brand. Each domain, there is no limit to, only your own, the limitations that you set yourself can be, the limitation of growing a business on any domain name that you can find in our marketplace. So yeah, domains that mean business, it's complex. I believe if you invite me, in a year from now, I'll have more to add in regards to what domains mean business really means.
Just depending on what experience you'll have and the sales and the new customers, new buyers and their businesses.
Exactly.
Speaking of clients and their businesses, members and their businesses, do any of them come to your mind that basically nailed it in terms of like taking advantage of the full potential that a domain provides?
Yeah, there are lots of them. And speaking of domains that mean business, you have to treat one of the things that all successful clients that keep buying domain names from us have in common is they treat their websites. And the reason I say websites is because we're in a realm of digital marketing and building digital businesses. Very few of them have, kind of connection with the offline world, so to speak, even if it's a lead generation business for a local business like a lawyer, like a legal solicitor's firm. Even then, it's all online. But what people don't get is that they have to treat their website as a business. And those who got the idea that they have to treat their website like a business, and as Matt Diggity says, do all the things. Like what should I do, to grow my traffic? What should I do, to get more brand recognition? What should I do, to increase the trust signals to my site? Do all the things that a real business would do, and treat your website like a business. Don't treat your website like, an internet hustle, just to make some money and affiliate revenue, because it won't last. It won't last because things are changing really fast. Google algorithms are changing really fast. The way people interact with websites is changing really fast. So you just have to treat your website like a business and do all the things.
So do any particular examples come to your mind that you would want to mention?
Well, I can only mention those that our clients feel comfortable revealing. One of the latest is the very rapidly growing is Carl's Broadband, GardeniaOrganic.com. It's a public case study that has been building on one of our domains. I don't know the exact numbers in terms of revenue, but he recently sent a newsletter email to everyone, and he said he reached 100,000 page views to the website. I mean, for a starter website, that's not bad. I believe it will reach millions in a year or two from now. It just but it shows that if you're committed and you understand the business model, in his case, we're talking about content websites. It's just a matter of being focused and doing what works. So there are lots of cases, but most of the time our members are, they like keeping, their websites and domain names private, just because, in the industry, especially the affiliate website industry and the content website industry, very few want to innovate and to have resources and the budget to test new things. So they copy each other. Mm-hmm. So rarely someone like Carl has let's say the guts to share the website URL, with his subscribers and have skin in the game, because he have like a training program and, he walks the talk.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Buying a domain name is not just a regular purchase, like just bought me a loaf of bread. That's an investment, and an investment that can either like rise to the top or flop, right? So what are the risks involved?
Well, the biggest risk is your own commitment. Are you committed to make it work? Because 90% of entrepreneurs, or wannabe entrepreneurs, generally speaking, they all start, but very few are, have what it takes to persevere, to keep pushing, to, it sounds like it has been said multiple times, keep jumping from, or moving from failure to failure with the exact same level of enthusiasm, even though they lost money, even though they lost rankings, even though they lost traffic, even though they lost belief in the business model itself. So at the end of the day, the best analogy, at least for now, is like comparing domains with real estate, and specifically undeveloped real estate. Like you buy a piece of land with the goal of what? Just owning the land. You can trade land. Yeah. It's a, established business model, owning, fractional ownership of land, just buying undeveloped land. But then again, if you want to build like a house, or you want to build, like a skyscraper, like what are your goals? Are you committed to those goals? Do you have enough resources to build those goals? Because sometimes it can be confusing. You're buying a domain and then you figure out what's next. Well, if you have like enough capital and you see a great domain name that's worth buying, it indeed is worth buying, because if you aren't getting it, someone else will. But at the end of the day, if you treat them like a business, you should understand that a domain that you have invested in can become a high-risk asset unless you have, different means to monetize it. Like the first one would be, build a business, build a website, like any type of business. The second one would be, liquidating the domain name, meaning selling at a later point in time and just getting your money back or even making a profit. So you should have, like these levels of understanding, like what are the risks. So that's why I always tell, people I get to talk with, especially among our members, that they may be able to sell the domain later on. That's because Odys domains are investment grade domains. And the reason I say that is because there is value, first of all, in the name. And there is also like value in the historical records and the SEO value that it holds. So these are the risks, but the biggest one is like your commitment. Yeah.
So it's either, should be fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Domains, the domain industry, everything related to that. You're passionate about that. I mean, you've been doing it for so many years and you're still into it. And it seems like ideas are running through your head right now as we're speaking. What about your other passions?
I have to admit that at some point in time, I got really bored of everything domains related. And what sparked my interest and allowed me to keep pushing, because this is a venture like any other venture. There's like a website or any other company or business that you build. You have to keep pushing, even though at times you may feel bored, you may lack enthusiasm, you may want to, have an inflection point in your life, change overall direction. And what kept me going and gave me this breath of fresh air was that I realized that we have to build a great company. And that was like set the next goal. And in regards to other passions, like anything that can help build this great company is suitable as a passion right now. I won't be able to, I don't have like any passions like golf, for example, or sports. that I practice like intensively, or I have like lots of passion towards. These days, it's mostly doing things that can help the business and finding some kind of excitement among them. And one of those would be reading books, lots of, regardless like what book, mostly business books, but biographies are huge. That's because you can learn more from a biography or from a failure story than from a so-called business book, which teaches you how to make money. 99% of those books are just gibberish. And, lately I've been very fond of just taking random calls with our members. And this is something I thought I wouldn't be doing from the moment like when we started, hiring more aggressively and getting a team. That's because you have roles, you have departments, you have people, managing other people, so forth and so on. But I just thought that, it's getting to know new faces and getting to see new faces and getting to talk to random people, and getting to hear their stories is one of the best way to, just, expose yourself to something different. And, there are basically two means to grow. The first one is setting yourself goals and just, achieving them. And the second one is, unpredictability and stress and different crisis situations in your life. So, crises are inevitable, and we cannot predict the future. That's why we cannot take that for granted. Life will still teach you when the time comes. In regards, to personal development, I just thought, there are things you can do, like, talking to new people. And after COVID, traveling kind of got limited, so I haven't been traveling a lot lately. But, I simply got to meet a lot of new people. I believe at some point I have like 3-4 calls each and every day, and I enjoy each and every one of them. And obviously, books, I just have this mindset that regardless how bad a book is, that's because I will still devour it till the end. Like, that's a commitment. And sometimes I may just skim read through the book. But if there is like one sentence, one paragraph that made reading that book worthwhile, I won't regret reading it.
Do you have a favorite book? Like the top of all time?
Really?
For yourself?
Not really. I've been fond of Nassim Nicholas Taleb and The Black Swan, and his skin in the game concept was very inspiring. But, there is something to learn from each and every one. I'm reading now the conspiracy book by Ryan Holiday, where he describes like a real world, business entrepreneurial conspiracy by Peter Thiel. And to be honest, I don't really enjoy the book, but what I enjoy is, the story behind Peter Thiel, persistence in getting something done. That is something that I can learn from this. And each and every time I just try to find something that's kind of, acts as a confirmation bias for something that I already know, but at the same time, it validates, that things can be done differently.
Provides a perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice. What about Jiu-Jitsu? You've been doing Jiu-Jitsu for quite a while.
Yeah, and I've started with Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and then I switched to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's because I just wanted something new. And again, just like with this business, like at some point in time,
just got bored?
I wouldn't say bored. I just wanted more out of it, because, the entire Japanese culture, it just makes you feel comfortable with repeatedly performing tasks. And us Westerners, we're not programmed, to kind of burn our entire life in an attempt to repeatedly perform tasks till we master them. So most of the time, you rarely have Westerners that reach very high levels without, getting themselves burned. So I thought like a switch wouldn't hurt. I reached to a certain degree in the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and then I discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I intensively practiced it till I had like the purple belt. And then I realized that, there are lots of things that I learned. And at that given point in time, it kind of, I had like this idea that, that it's time to build a company, and I simply couldn't focus enough, on doing it intensively and at the same level that I wanted to reach some level of performance. So I had to pick. So I decided, to just focus on the business for the time being.
So it wasn't just about physical competition, not just physical challenge. It was also about the mindset.
For me,
philosophy.
Everything related to jiu-jitsu was more like, validating, my mindset, the concepts. So it was less, physical, even though I had like broken fingers and ribs and, everything that comes with it. It was more like, so I remember when we were rolling and even during, competitions, like my mind was elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And my body kept fighting, but my mind was also elsewhere. And I would think like, what would I make, from this particular position in a real world, situation? It wasn't always related to fighting. As a matter of fact, it was never related to fighting. It was more related like, persuasion,
Well, you basically took it out of the sports into your daily life.
Yeah.
Like into developing your vision, into developing your views on situations in your life. Do any of these things, the concepts, affect you today, or did you leave them behind as soon as you stopped doing jiu-jitsu?
I never left them behind, but when you do something, when you keep practicing something with the aim of just doing it really well, I'd say, with the aim of doing it perfectly, it just happens to be with you everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. So even if you don't think about it. So these days, for example, one of the most important, I'd say, traits of any entrepreneur is the ability to handle pressure. The reason we don't see as many entrepreneurs as we see these days is that, very few people are able to handle pressure, lots of pressure. And there is lots of pressure regardless what you do. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu especially, there was lots of pressure. And, whoever was able to handle more pressure would eventually, last till an opportunity, kind of appear to either get out of a bad position or just overcome the position, or just, keep going, improve the position, or just, finish up your opponent. So the ability to handle pressure, I believe, is to handle pressure and just feel comfortable with pressure, because you won't there is the concept that you will reach a point in life where there's going to be no stress, no pressure, no challenges is ridiculous. It won't happen.
So you're just constantly just keeping calm and looking for a way out of a triangle choke.
Yeah, exactly. Ideally, you don't want to get in a triangle choke.
Does anything of that affect the way you manage company? Well, yeah, obviously the way to handle pressure, but maybe anything else.
Well, I try to think about, the golden middle approach, meaning, whenever there is a conflict, for example, I'd, hear everyone, and then I'd, take a decision that is in favor of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a golden middle would be, because, everyone has their own point of view and everyone is right to an extent, but it does help, to move forward with, a decision that is in the favor of the company.
And how does this work with the team?
Well, most people in our company are very smart, so they do. They do understand. They do understand that we can't grow this company if we put our ego first.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, they take a day off or just go and have some rest, and the next day they understand that we have to do what we have to do. And I wouldn't call it like managing the team. I believe just motivating the team, or explaining that everything we do is aimed at some kind of goal or purpose. There are limited things that I can do alone. With the help of the team, I can get there faster. We can get that faster. So sometimes someone may not feel comfortable doing certain things, like in the first edition of this podcast, for example. It feels a little bit of stress, excitement.
Yeah, hype.
Yeah, a little bit of hype. But still, we just decided to move forward with it and do it. So yeah, so sometimes, and in this particular case, the podcast is actually something that, you enjoy. And I actually don't mind, doing it, don't mind getting interviewed, don't mind chatting about, business life, business philosophy, entrepreneurship. I actually like, chatting about these things. But generally speaking, it's, I believe good leadership isn't about, creating pressure, even though there are some cases where pressure is necessary just to, to learn a lesson, for example, and just, try to show people that they can move and go further than they thought they could. Good leadership is all about, showing people that the value is in the team, that we can achieve more together than, as individuals, as freelancers in our own space. So that's what makes working in a company very attractive, at least to me.
Well, from my own perspective, I think you're succeeding as a part of the.
At least I'm trying.
As a part of the team. You mentioned that there are limitations to the things you can do alone. How did it make you feel when you finally got a team, like people that were like sharing your vision, that were understanding your goals, that were assisting in each step with their own talents, their own like strengths and means of whatever they do?
Odys started around, the end of 2012. So I believe it was like 2 or 3 months that me and my partner worked as, as the only 2 employees of the company and of the business model that kind of emerged. Immediately, we very, very soon after we realized that we needed help. So that's when we hired our first employees, and that's when the India team was born, which has around 20 people, 25 right now.
Wow.
And I wouldn't call it like, wow, it's big, considering, our current goals and needs, but it's not as big as Amazon's, for example, or any other company. But a good and important trait that kind of kept me thinking throughout this time is that from the moment we hired our core team in India, we had just one single person leave. And that was because he had some family issues, not because we fired them.
Well, that's a wow.
Yeah. So I believe that is like the biggest achievement in terms of early team building. Just because, and the funny thing is that we haven't really had the chance to actually see them, travel to India, do lots of calls. So it won't mostly, chatting, training, and just somehow they felt inspired by what we do, by our commitment, by being there, by helping them, motivating them to grow, because most of them had no clue what a domain is. And, they learn everything from scratch. So I would say that, we're like, it's close to impossible to achieve anything big yourself. Like the only thing that you can achieve yourself is, it might be some, idea and just, the ability to, just convince people, validate your idea, gather some kind of core team. But at the end of the day, you can't do anything without help. And I wouldn't call doing some tasks and, getting something done, but, collective IQ and brainstorming and just, just giving your team what it needs to develop itself and to grow the company overall.
That sounds really inspiring. So you have 20-25 people in India. Where do other team members come from?
So right now we have a team in India, which I'm personally very proud of. Really great guys have been with us, for, I believe, close to, I think, 8 years, because, around 8 years. And then, we have the core team in there that they're managing, when it comes, our due diligence team for domains is in India, and they manage some, that they have the operators team who process most domains, and everything is done manually. That's because, there is no AI or automation that can handle that right now. So someone may leave or go, but the core team, the head of department, is still there. Then we have Kirill, who's the head of domain acquisition. He's in Austria. He's working remotely. And we had, contractors and agencies that we've employed throughout the years One agency that played a huge role was in Manchester, UK, Statuo. Shouts out to Nicola, who helped design the first Odys logo, which is on your t-shirt, and the first Odys website. Yeah. And our pay-per-click guys, Rick Chibrico and Tom Hornby, were from Manchester as well. And then at some point, they were all great guys. And we even had like a marketing agency, Anna Pelova, that helped she was from Bulgaria, and she helped a lot. But at some point in time, we felt like we need more bandwidth. So we decided to, being in the region, we decided to relocate and establish an office in Moldova, which was very attractive. Lots of talented people, everyone speaks English. So we relocated here, and we basically went on a hiring spree last year, and we hired close to 30 people, and we got a great office. And we decided, in a world where everyone is just doing everything remotely and not getting to see each other's face, not getting to bond with the team, we'd do it differently. We'd move in the opposite direction, and that would be a competitive advantage in itself, without just spending too much on competitiveness with with our competitors. We wouldn't, try to, win over competitors in the we would try to use, the team building on a local level as our advantage, the ability to solve problems, quick meetings. And I believe in a way, even the podcast that we managed to launch is basically talks for itself in the way that it proves that it kind of works. But it's very important to be able to have access to local talent and to get to, develop this local branding, for international company. So even though like we have these people, working all over the world and having, some core offices in certain places, the company is established in Estonia, and we are yet to form another office there in an attempt to look for additional talent whenever the local market in Moldova wouldn't allow us to. And overall, it's a global company, and that's why it's Odys Global. We had several ideas to rebrand to just Odys, but it just doesn't sound as good as Odys Global, just because global sends a different signal.
Absolutely. Getting back to the team, what is your approach to finding the right people?
There is no approach, I'd say. I mean, we have some processes, that involve hiring, but at the end of the day, I believe it's still a hit or miss. You have to kind of assume some kind of risk when, you just have to, you can't really know, their CV may be extraordinary, but you really can't know until you start working with the person. And also the gut feeling, like 50% of any decision an entrepreneur makes or someone makes is just the gut feeling. Like it has to feel right. Oftentimes it's wrong, but overall it has to feel right. There are some things that you have to like about the person.
First day I got here, to the first work day I had, I was like, what the hell is an H domain?
I believe that there is a misconception in regards to domains and H domains. I believe everyone has dealt with domains. They just didn't realize it. When they got, online to buy something, they dealt with the domain. When they had to, read something online, like a piece of news, they dealt with the domain. Like when you had to remember some kind of, your local plumber, you had to remember a domain name, you have to, just try to, get it out of your head. So you had everyone at this point in time, I believe there are very few people that didn't have the chance to deal with domain names. They just didn't figure out, and they just didn't go and actually analyze and try to go in depth and study what a domain is. So I don't really think a good level of understanding of a particular industry is important if the person is committed, if he or she is eager to learn. And I believe what we all share here is that no one will ever mind helping, sharing, and helping you grow, and just assisting and answering questions to an extent where there are no more questions, and just sharing knowledge. And we've been doing this from the very beginning, and I believe that's again an advantage. That because rarely do you get to, and also considering that this age domain industry or premium age domain industry is very specific. So you need people with both a good understanding of domains as an industry and SEO and traffic and branding and money making online and Google algorithms and lots of so these are things that you can share when you know them. These are things that you can learn, and if you're passionate about them, you can grow really fast as as a person with a really good understanding of the industry. So I don't really think that you need to have some kind of certificate or training. That's very old school, and it really doesn't apply. If you have the desire to learn, you will learn, and you will learn very fast.
And you have to be flexible.
Yeah, sure.
Can we say that each team member kind of goes through their own due diligence process of working in the company?
They do. And I believe one of the reasons why people stay in the company is they get attracted to the way we operate. They get attracted to the product. They get attracted by the fact that we are developing our own product, not just, serving clients as an outsourcing company would. And also on the opposite side, those who don't really get what we're doing, they kind of, they simply feel that they cannot move forward working in this company. And there is nothing wrong with that. They just need something different. Anything related to digital marketing, online entrepreneurship has is very specific in a way. You have to understand, the nature. You have to be on the back end of the web, so to speak. And very few have this building mindset. Most of the people have the consumer mindset. They consume products. They don't build products. So that is the main difference. From what I've seen and noticed, those who end up working in our company and they really enjoy, they have the building mindset. Building this, cozy environment for the podcast requires a building mindset. Building a great marketplace, even if you're a programmer or, anyone who's developing, ideas to improve it, requires a building mindset. Everyone who's achieved and has pushed, humanity forward, technology forward, has a building mindset. So the building mindset is what differentiates, people who will end up working in this company or not. And most of them, they're getting excited beyond the, the fact that we have a great office, that we're all, cool human beings, the building mindset and the, the understanding that they can lobby their ideas into the product, and those ideas can be the foundation of a great product and a great company is what attracts them.
Speaking of office, you've moved here not so long ago,
yeah,
right? How long ago? A year?
It's been a year already, yeah.
And does the way the office is arranged affect the work of the company, your personal work?
I always enjoyed, the concept of transparency. That's why we have transparent walls and glass walls. And I always liked, big spaces. And obviously they're expensive, but at the same time, they just give you the ability, to think freely. And it just really translates some of the missions and visions and philosophy of the company. So I do believe that's important, because at the end of the day, when, you get to surround yourself with the right people, they will look at all the things. And initially, the first appearance matters, even though it's a cliche, but it matters. It does matter. They just have to know, are you committed as a business owner and as someone, pushing the company forward? Are you committed, to taking care of them, including and just offering them, the perspective of a fruitful career? So I believe everything starts with, the way how people treat the brand, employee branding is very important.
Do team members currently appreciate the environment?
I haven't asked, but I believe they do.
Well, I think so too. I do. Speaking from my own experience, I've been working for a company that was situated in the center of the city, but it was a house that was really gloomy and dark. It was very, very closed space, and it just didn't feel right. And although I've been writing things I like I always did. I couldn't say I had enough of creative thought. It just was like everything was pressing down.
I don't think this is like critical. At least as a startup, among founders, you can work in very Spartan conditions. Like you can work anywhere on a bench in the park. It doesn't really matter because you're so committed. You're hyped up by the idea that came to your mind and you want to get it done. When it comes to hiring people, and surrounding yourself with smart people, at least they will look at everything. And again, I believe the most successful companies are those companies that, as Naval Ravikant, I'd recommend you look into his books and even following him on Twitter. He says, the most successful startups are those that are somehow, continuing the mindset of the founders or of the founder, meaning, the way the founder has seen, the business growing and even the style of the offices, even though that I wouldn't call that critical. It's not really, it's really not important. Like if you can preach a good mission for the company, if you can inspire people, if you have like a good, smart leadership, you can grow really big without a fancy office. But at some point, and us being like, this is not our first month or year. We've been in the business for more than 10 years. So I believe at some point it was like nice to have, let's treat ourselves a nice office. Let's buy some nice coffee. Again, this is not critical. This won't have an impact on the, overall yearly turnover. But when done right, it might. Because every small detail inspires you, like in a great car or, in a great house or just in any great experience, like a great vacation, like the small details count. So in this particular case, we just thought like, why not? Why not? If we do it, we should do it in a way that, acts as an investment, for the team. You invest in the team and the way the team, feels itself. So you expect to create, that special atmosphere that will allow them to focus on getting things done. And when being creative, and I believe we've partially achieved that.
So you basically, figuratively speaking, bought a domain name, fitted it out, and then filled it with content.
Yeah.
People.
yeah, in a way, you can say so.
What are the things that inspire you the most?
Right now, it's the goal of just building a great company. Like this, I've been thinking about it, and I really don't have at this point in life anything that would inspire me most. Like obviously my family, but one of the things that, we do is family. I believe you rarely see any highly motivated individuals that would do anything without, having someone, to root for them at home. In my case, if not for my family, if not for my wife or not for my daughter, I would probably not be here. That's because you constantly need to find some level of motivation beyond the work itself. Like financial rewards at some point, they don't matter anymore. So what inspires me would be, just reaching new thresholds in, the overall growth and just getting to heights that you haven't thought would be possible before. And that with the help of a great team by building a great company. Again, you can't do everything yourself. And rarely, like you can scale a micro business yourself. You can flip it, you can sell it, you can exit it. But growing really big without, a team is close to impossible. That is probably the challenge for at least the next, 5 years for me. Like, how big can we grow this? Considering, the realities of the business model, the fact that we are bootstrapped. We don't have any investors. We have no loans, no capital, that we've taken. Like everything is bootstrapped. And one of the mindset that I always try to kind of relate to whenever talking, to our team is how can we make something out of nothing? So when you have an idea and you need to finance it, like how do we finance that idea without taking a loan? How do we finance that idea without, raising funds? And usually, it comes to, we have to sell more domains. So how do we sell more domains? Obviously, outreaching for selling is a very primitive way of selling. So we think we should add more value. We should be more helpful. We should think about to get our customers and clients and members better. We should learn more about their business. And this usually leads to more sales, just trying to, create a more amazing buying experience and just adding value to your product. And that's how you finance a company is when bootstrapping.
Were there moments when you you've had to choose between the business and the relationships, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I don't. I always chose my wife. That's because I cannot refuse my wife. I would probably, I can say no to sleep, and I will work during the night when she's sleeping, but I will not say no when, we have to go out, we have to take some time off. I believe that's important. At the end of the day, you have to collect moments in life, not things.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been something like, like a slogan. And I believe the ability to say no to everything else and leave some space, leave some bandwidth for your family and for what they need from you is very important. At the end of the day, what's motivating me, at least as a man, is, my family, my wife. And I believe, as previously said, rarely do you get, this level of motivation just from, financial reward. Financial reward is basically the outcome of everything you do, but it's not the overall purpose. Like I've lost interest in just, getting rewarded financially for work and for anything that we do. Like you simply get bored. Like at some level, you simply get bored and you want something else. So that's why, like, if there was, like, I don't like the work, kind of work, personal life and work, work-life balance, this sort of approach. But I believe you have to work as much as you have to work. But whenever the time comes that you have to be there for them, you just have to be there for them. And if you need to choose, you always choose your family, but you need to compensate, and you compensate by sleeping less. And there are some, obviously health-related threats to sleeping less, but you have to choose because there's one life that you live and half of it we sleep. And if you sleep too much, you might sleep, the important part.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, the health issues, were you having any health issues related to like investing too much into business? Like, I don't know. One of those you mentioned, sleeping, which affected probably productivity. Maybe you've had headaches and all that kind of stuff. Maybe something else.
Well, health is important. Sleep is the most important thing that you need to get out of your daily routine in order to keep performing. I believe I just stopped paying attention at some point because when it's like you mentioned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Imagine you're rolling and you want to win. Like from what I've seen and from my own experience, if you start winning the moment you get an injury during a fight, you won't win. You just have to, all right, so my finger broke, all right, but I'll keep rolling. I'll keep doing what I have to do if I want to win. And it's very similar to, and then I'll figure it out. And it's very similar here. Like if you have a really bad headache, but you have like 4 meetings today, you just have to do them. You don't just go home and lay and say, oh, I feel so bad. Now I'll get, headache pill. I'll try to, massage behind my, neck and try to just, get relaxed a little bit, go breathe some fresh air and just get it done. This is really very important because your mind and your brain, when forced to overperform, it will always choose the easy way out. But just like with the ability to handle pressure, you have to choose the obstacle, like the hard way every single time. And that is usually 90% of the cases, that is usually the good decision. That's why I'm not saying health is not important. It's extremely important because as Gary Vee says, like if you're dead, you're out of business. But you'll figure it later. Like you'll figure, in some cases you'll figure it later, maybe even today, like before the podcast. Like anything can happen, but then again, you have to just, get rid of all the thoughts.
Yeah.
And just focus on getting it done. And later you'll figure everything else later.
Where do you see the company in a year's time?
I'm not exactly sure in terms of growth. And I believe growth is less important than, the actual position. I mean, I know growth will be there. We'll experience growth, like, financial growth, overall growth. But I'm just seeing it as one of the brands and one of the companies that kind of made the due diligence process one of a kind and kind of raised awareness of the certain risks associated with domain names. These days, people when buying and selling domain names, they would look at specific things and they won't look at all the things. So we try to look at all the things, starting from trademarks, domain extensions, the overall potential of building a domain name, matching it with an idea, historical records, whatever was in the domain before, former owners, former content. And we pay attention to all of that. And I believe at this point in time, there is no company that does that, and we're always trying to do it better and to improve our processes, and our due diligence is our bread and butter in a way. So I believe it has to be we initially called, these specific, aftermarket domain names, age domains. Then we've added premium because they're investment grade and not some, numbers and letters in the name. You have dictionary words names that are worth something it
can be branded.
Yeah, it can be branded just well-positioned, piece of land or real estate in a city or close to a city that can be used for development. It's actually valuable. And then we'll probably move in the direction of calling them Odys domain, just because Odys became a standard of quality. And that's basically when we reach that goal, that they can, when a domain has passed through the Odys due diligence, and that being associated with the Odys brand, then I believe we've reached, and that is recognizable among, the experts in the industry, and the domainers and SEOs and everyone who needs a domain basically and looks for the domain in the aftermarket. I believe that will be the level of growth that we've aimed towards, and we'll feel accomplished at that point. Not fully accomplished, but at least we've reached something that we aimed to from the very beginning.
Is there any advice you'd like to give to the aspiring entrepreneurs?
Well, you have to get comfortable with pressure. I believe that is a more philosophical approach. It doesn't directly relate to website building, but from what I'm seeing, and I personally do my best to help, our members, beginners, from, general business advice to specific and technical website, growth advice, they have to get comfortable with pressure. And that pressure at some times can begin with, are you comfortable to write, 200,000 words in the next, quarter yourself? If you're bootstrapping and you don't want to spend your life savings on buying someone else's content? Or are you comfortable with the pressure of knowing that your website, can get smashed in the next Google algorithm update and start from scratch? Or are you comfortable with the pressure of knowing that the niche you have picked might not work, or you're not, probably, experienced enough to write content for that specific niche? So lots of challenging throughout the way, and the ability to handle pressure and the ability to, move forward, regardless of the outcome is probably the only advice that I keep repeating to entrepreneurs and everyone that's just getting started, because it won't end anytime. You just have to feel comfortable, knowing that it's coming, but it will also go away at some point, and you'll just be able to just move forward with whatever you intended to do.
Wow. Well, thanks for the advice. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Thanks for giving the insight into the way you think, the way you see things. It was a very enjoyable conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.